You feel an unrest that has no name. It is not a problem at work. It is not a fight at home. It is not money getting tight. It is something deeper, older, more bothersome. A sensation that something important is happening inside you right now, at this very moment, and that if you ignore it, you will miss it. If you have woken up like this in the last few days, if you are lying in bed in the middle of the night with your heart racing for no reason, if you are driving to work and suddenly feel that you need to stop everything and pay attention to something you don't know what it is, this video is for you. Because what you are experiencing is not accumulated stress. It is not fatigue. It is not the onset of depression. It is an alarm, a spiritual alarm that has started to ring inside you. And in the next few minutes, I will explain to you exactly what this alarm means, why it rang now, and what you need to do in the next 7 days so you don't miss the window of discernment that has opened for you. I won't ramble. I won't promise you a magical miracle. I will deliver 3 concrete truths, 3 biblical figures who lived exactly what you are living, and 3 practical steps that will pull you out of the state of confusion you find yourself in. But before I begin, I need you to understand one fundamental thing. This alarm is not on the calendar. It is not about May 11th specifically. Heaven does not emit sirens on dates. The alarm is inside you, in your conscience, in your body, in your intuition. And if it is ringing now, it is because your internal system has recognized that you have reached a turning point that has a name, has a biblical precedent of over 3,000 years, and has a documented explanation in contemporary psychology. That is what we are going to talk about from now on. Let's start with the symptom, because it is likely that you have been confusing this alarm with something else for months, perhaps years. The spiritual alarm does not arrive as an audible voice. It does not arrive as a prophetic dream full of clear images.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind, also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.
It does not arrive as a light in the room. It arrives in a much more subtle and much more persistent way. It arrives as a pressure in the chest that appears for no apparent reason, especially between 4 and 5 in the morning, that time when many people wake up suddenly and cannot go back to sleep. It arrives as a disproportionate irritation with situations you used to tolerate. Empty conversations at work, television shows that used to amuse you, social media that now seems to suck your soul, people talking about trivialities while you are feeling the weight of something that no one there is noticing. It arrives as an increased sensitivity to injustice, to hypocrisy, to the emptiness of people who continue to reproduce automatic gestures while something inside you screams that life is not just this. It arrives as a strange longing, a longing without an object, a longing for something you have never lived but that seems to belong to you by right. It arrives as vivid dreams that you don't quite remember, but that leave you all day with a feeling that something was said there. It arrives as an uncomfortable certainty that the life you are leading is not the life you were called to live, and it arrives mainly as loneliness. A different kind of loneliness, because you can be surrounded by people, married, with children, with friends, and still feel that you are alone inside thick glass, seeing everyone on the other side and no longer being able to truly connect. If you recognized yourself in at least 3 of these signs, stay with me. Because what comes next will give you a key that you have been looking for a long time without knowing the name of what you were looking for. And take this opportunity now before you forget to subscribe to the Escolidos channel and turn on the notification bell. This series is just beginning, and the next videos will decode each of these symptoms in a very specific way. You won't want to miss it. Now let me introduce you to the first biblical figure who understands with surgical precision what you are feeling. His name in Hebrew is Tsophe. In Portuguese, we usually translate it as vigia, watchman, but the translation is too weak for the weight of the original word. Tsophe comes from the root tsafa, which means to look from afar, to look from above, to look with expectation, to look like an awake sentinel. The Tsophe was not an ordinary soldier. He was the man who stayed in the highest tower of the city alone when everyone else was sleeping. He was the man who saw the enemy approaching before anyone else. He was the man who saw the messenger arriving before the city knew there was news. And his job, his only job, was to blow the trumpet to wake the city when danger or news arrived. In Ezekiel chapter 33, God says a phrase that needs to enter your heart right now. If the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes their life, these people die in their iniquity, but their blood will be required at the watchman's hand. Do you understand the weight of this? The watchman who sees and does not warn carries the weight of those who died without warning. But what few people realize is the other side of this equation. There is an internal watchman in you. There is a part of your conscience that was placed in the highest tower of your soul to watch over your own life. And that part is blowing the trumpet now. It is seeing something approaching, a change, a decision, a turning point, a harvest, a crossing, and it is trying to wake you up. The problem is that you are accustomed to ignoring this voice. You learn to call this voice anxiety. You learn to take medicine to silence this voice when the medicine was not necessary. You learn to distract yourself with Netflix, with infinite scrolling on your phone, with excessive work, with drinking on the weekend, with anything that muffles the sound of the internal trumpet. And that is why this alarm is so loud now, because you spent so much time ignoring it that your internal watchman had to turn up the volume to the point where you can no longer pretend you aren't hearing it. In ancient Hebrew, there is another word that connects directly with Tsophe, and this word carries an extra layer of meaning that you need to know. The word is shakad, which means to be awake, to be vigilant, to be attentive like an almond tree that blooms before all other trees in winter, and is therefore called by the ancient Hebrews the vigilant tree. In Jeremiah chapter 1, God asks the prophet what he is seeing, and the prophet replies that he is seeing a branch of an almond tree, a branch of shaked. And God replies that he saw well because he, God, is shocked. He is watching over his word to fulfill it. The same root, the same vigilance, the same awakening before the natural time. You are an almond tree. You are someone who is being called to bloom before the season, to wake up before others, to feel spring before it manifests on the external calendar. And that is why you feel alone. That is why the people around you seem to sleep a sleep that you can no longer sleep. It is not a disease. It is not a maladjustment. It is a vocation. You are the first tree to bloom while the rest of the forest is still dormant. And your discomfort comes exactly from this, because your maturity arrived before the maturity of your surroundings. And this leaves you in a strange place, seeing things that no one has yet seen. I will give you a concrete fact, so you understand that this is not all in your head. A Datafolha survey published in partnership with the Department of Psychopharmacology at Unifesp showed that more than 60% of adult Brazilians report persistent symptoms of restlessness without an identifiable cause, with a peak manifestation in the age group over 35. USP, in studies by the Institute of Psychiatry, classifies this phenomenon as existential transition anxiety, and Fiocruz has documented in the last 5 years a significant increase in what researchers technically call midlife sense awakening. Sebrae, in research on career transition, found that more than 40% of Brazilians between 35 and 55 report a persistent desire to radically change the course of their lives without knowing exactly where to. And IPEA connected this data with an increase in the search for therapy, spirituality, and training in completely new areas. What science is measuring in a fragmented way is what the biblical tradition named 3,000 years ago as the touch of the Tsophe. The restlessness you feel has a scientific name, has a biblical name, and has a purpose. It is not driving you crazy. It is calling you. If you are following along this far and feeling as if every word were being said specifically to you, do one simple thing for me and for yourself. Leave your like on this video now. This small gesture makes the algorithm understand that this content needs to reach other people who are waking up now, exactly like you. You have no idea how many people are lying awake in the middle of the night, feeling what you are feeling, without finding a single explanation that makes sense. Your like is the gesture that puts this content on the path of those people. But now let's go to the most important part, which is understanding why this is happening to you now, at this specific moment in your life, and not 5 years ago nor 5 years in the future. Because the right time has a name, and that name changes everything. And this is where the second key you need to understand comes in, perhaps the most transformative key of this entire video. The ancient Greeks, who wrote a good part of the New Testament, had two completely different words for what we, in Portuguese, simply call time. The first word is chronos. Chronos is clock time, calendar time, time measured in hours, days, years. It is chronological, linear, measurable time. It is the time that makes you age. It is the time that makes the electricity bill due. It is the time that appears on the bank statement and the bill. It is the time of the bank queue, of the traffic on the marginal, of the wait in the doctor's office. It is the time measured in quantity. But there is a second word, and this word has no exact translation in Portuguese. This word is kairos. And understanding kairos can literally reorganize your life. Kairos is qualitative time. It is the right moment. It is the opportune time. It is that instant when a window opens and everything you do within that window carries a weight disproportionate to the chronological time it occupies. The Greeks imagined Kairos as a male figure with wings on his feet and a single lock of hair on the front of his head. The image is literal. Kairos runs by, and you have to grab the lock in front when he is arriving, because after he passes, there is no way to grab him from behind. The head behind is bald. You either grab it at the right moment or you miss it. There is no way to chase after Kairos once he has passed, and that is exactly what is happening to you now. You are not in Chronos, you are in Kairos. The alarm that is ringing inside you is the alarm that a window has opened, and this window does not stay open forever. It is not a threat, it is a description. Windows of spiritual opportunity have a beginning and an end, just as a planting season has a beginning and an end, just as a season has a beginning and an end. Those who plant at the right time harvest. Those who plant out of season work in vain. To help you understand the practical weight of Kairos, let me tell you the story of the second biblical figure of this journey. Her name is Hadassah, but you probably know her by the Persian name Esther. Esther was a Jewish orphan who was taken to the palace of Emperor Ahasuerus of the Persian Empire, and through a sequence of events she did not control, she became queen of one of the greatest powers of the ancient world. But there is a detail that many people miss when they read her story. Esther was placed in that position not by her own merit, not by ambition, not by political strategy, not by spectacular talent. She was placed there by something the book calls hidden providence, because the name of God does not appear a single time in the book of Esther, and yet his presence permeates every line. Her story has the same design as your story. You were placed in the place where you are, in the city where you are, in the job where you are, with the people who are around you, by a sequence of events that you did not entirely control, and you always thought this was chance. You always thought it was bad luck or too much luck or simply the way things happened. But what if it isn't? What if every door that closed to push you exactly to the place where you needed to arrive? What if every relationship that ended to make room for something you don't know yet? And what if every apparently wrong decision was, in fact, part of an orchestration that you have no way of seeing from the inside? At a certain point in the story, when the Jewish people were about to be exterminated by a decree manipulated by a corrupt advisor named Haman, Esther's uncle Mordecai sends a message to her inside the palace. Esther was in a comfortable position. She could have stayed silent. She could have protected herself. She could have waited for the storm to pass, thinking that as queen she would be safe. And in this message that Mordecai sends her is one of the densest phrases in the entire Bible. Mordecai says, Who knows if it was not for a time like this that you came to the kingdom? The original expression in Hebrew carries the weight of kairos. It is not just any time, it is this time, it is this moment, it is this window, it is now. And the question that Mordecai asks Esther is the same question that is being asked of you in this video. Who knows if everything you went through, all the doors that closed, all the apparently wrong decisions, all the relationships that ended, all the cities you lived in, all the jobs you went through, all the crises you went through, wasn't all to bring you exactly to this moment, in this month, in this week, in this video, with this specific awareness you have now. Who knows if you are not in Kairos? And if you are, what are you going to do with it? Here I want you to pause and answer one thing for me and for yourself. If you feel that this moment you are living now could be your Kairos, write the word Despertar, awakening, in the comments in capital letters. It is not just a word, it is a declaration. It is you recognizing publicly that you heard the alarm and that you will no longer ignore it. This simple gesture of writing Despertar in the comments activates three things at the same time. First, it activates an internal commitment of yours, because what we declare outward gains weight inward. Second, it activates the algorithm in favor of this content reaching more people who need to hear this. And third, it activates a network of readers who are in the same movement as you, because you are not alone in this awakening, even if it seems so. I read every comment and respond as much as I can. And this network that forms there in the comments is one of the most beautiful things about this channel, because you discover that there are other people scattered across Manaus, Recife, Belo Horizonte, Porto Alegre, Goiânia, living exactly what you are living, and this completely changes the feeling of loneliness. But I know that many people who are listening to me now have a strong rational part, a part that needs evidence beyond biblical tradition to believe. And for that part of you, I bring an important fact. The concept that theology calls Kairos has today a recognized equivalent in adult development psychology. Researchers call it the liminal phase, or liminality, a concept developed initially by anthropologist Victor Turner and later deepened in studies at Stanford and Harvard on existential transition in adults over 35. Liminality is the stage between an identity that no longer serves you and an identity that has not yet formed. It is the stage of the in-between. It is the stage in which the old person has died, but the new person has not yet been born. And the symptoms that scientific literature describes for this stage are exactly the symptoms you are living. Insomnia between 4 and 5 in the morning, increased sensitivity, irritation with superficiality, longing without an object, sensation that current life is too narrow. A study by the HeartMath Institute in the United States shows that during these periods of liminal transition, the person's heart rate enters a pattern called increased heart coherence, in which the heart begins to operate in closer harmony with regions of the brain responsible for intuition and strategic decision-making. In other words, your entire body is being recalibrated for an important decision. The American Psychological Association classifies this state as a window of existential plasticity, in which the capacity to change deeply is multiplied in relation to common periods of life. FGV in Brazil, in studies on career transition after 35, showed that people who recognize and respond to this phase significantly increase life satisfaction in the following 5 years compared to people who try to muffle the signal and continue as before. Science is confirming in its own language what Mordecai said to Esther more than 2,400 years ago. You are in a time like this, and what you do here carries more weight than 10 years of normal life. But then comes the question that has been bothering you for a long time. I am hearing the alarm. I am in Kairos. And now? What do I do? How do I respond? How do I not make a mistake? Because it is exactly here that many people get stuck. Many people recognize the awakening but paralyzed before the decision. Many people wake up and sit on the edge of the bed staring at nothing for hours, feeling the weight of knowing and not knowing what to do with the knowing. And it is precisely about how to get out of this paralysis that we will talk about now. And for this I need to introduce you to the third biblical figure of this journey. His name is David. But I don't want to talk to you about the David of the Psalm. I don't want to talk to you about the David of the giant Goliath. I want to talk to you about a very specific David, at a very specific moment, which is the David of the second book of Samuel, chapter 5, in a scene that almost no one comments on in common sermons, but which carries one of the most powerful keys for your current moment. David was facing the Philistines, a persistent enemy, and he does something that goes against every military manual of the time. He does not decide the strategy alone. He consults God, and the answer he receives is very strange. God says, "Do not go up directly against them. Go around behind, get positioned in front of the mulberry trees and stay silent." And then comes the part that changes everything. God says, "When you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the mulberry trees, then act quickly, for then the Lord will have gone out before you to strike the army of the Philistines." Stop for a second. Reread mentally with me. When you hear the sound in the tops of the mulberry trees, act quickly. This means that David had to do 3 things that no one was teaching him. First, wait. Second, listen. Third, act at the exact moment the signal appeared, not before, not after. Wait. Listen. Act. These are the 3 movements of Kairos, and they are exactly the 3 movements you need to make now. The first movement is to wait, and waiting is not doing nothing. Waiting is not making a definitive decision under pressure. It is common when the internal alarm rings loudly for the person to panic. They want to change everything at once. They want to quit their job today. They want to end the relationship today. They want to move to a new city today. They want to sell everything and start a new life tomorrow morning. And this urgency is exactly the opposite of Kairos. Kairos requires presence, not panic. It requires discernment, not impulse. Researchers at Yale in studies on decision-making in periods of high emotional intensity showed that decisions made in the first 72 hours after an existential awakening have a significantly higher probability of being reactive decisions, not aligned decisions. The clinical recommendation is simple. In the first weeks of the alarm, write everything down, but do not execute anything irreversible. You will feel the urge. The urge will be intense. The urge will seem divine, but wait. David stayed in the back. David did not attack head-on. You also don't need to attack your life head-on in the first weeks. Wait for the sound to arrive. There is a Hebrew word for this waiting, and this word is kava. Kava is not passive waiting. Kava is tense waiting, like a stretched rope, like a prepared bow. It is the same word used in Isaiah when the prophet says that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. That waiting is not stopping. It is positioning yourself with active expectation, knowing that something will come, and that is exactly what you need to do in the coming weeks. Position yourself with expectation, but do not force the door before the time. The second movement is to listen. And here comes a detail that many people miss. David was not instructed to listen to a voice. He was instructed to listen to a noise in the tops of the mulberry trees. In Hebrew, the word used for this noise is kol, which literally means sound, voice, noise, sound manifestation. But the point is that it was an environmental sound, not a dramatic inner voice with lights and fires. Why does this matter to you? Because mature discernment rarely comes as a spectacular revelation. It comes as an environmental confirmation. It comes as a door that opens when you didn't expect it. It comes as a person who appears and says exactly the word you needed to hear, without knowing they were saying it. It comes as a practical circumstance that reorganizes itself without you having forced anything. It comes as a book that falls into your hand. It comes as a video on YouTube that appears in your recommendations at the exact moment.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you, who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.